everybody. Welcome to the virtual tour of the Everglades. I'm really excited to show you a lot of the glades. It is a place that I've spent a lot of time. I actually used to work in southern Florida, and I would go on month-long canoeing trips into the Everglades. I did that a lot. So I know it pretty well. It's a really interesting and neat park. Someone asked if there was big mountains there. It's actually, there's not. It's really, really flat. It's called a river of grass. So there's a lot of water. There's a lot of these little trees called mangroves and shrubs. And it doesn't look really, really big. Like when we think of Yosemite or Grand Canyon or Joshua Tree, there's these like big mountains and hills and views to look from. We don't get that as much in the Everglades, but what we do get is a lot of really unique and really cool. So here's what we're gonna do today. I'm gonna show you like a few pictures of the Everglades, maybe 2 or 3, and then we're gonna start talking about the animals that live there because it's really, really neat. And the way I'm gonna do this is a little game called Guess the Animal. So I'm gonna show you a really, really zoomed in picture of an animal, and then we're gonna slowly zoom out until you can see the whole thing. So when you think you know what the animal is, go ahead and put it in the chat. I'll let you know when we're getting to that part, and I'll kind of remind everybody of the rules on that. But for the most part, we're gonna be doing some really fun animal stuff today. I even have some videos of some of these cool animal behaviors that I'm gonna show you guys. So if y'all are ready for it, I'm gonna start sharing the screen and get everybody into the Everglades. So I'm gonna press this button and then I'm gonna go there. And awesome. Okay, so I got one more thing I need to do real quick. Is perfect. Okay, we're good then. Sweet. So like I said, the Everglades is really, really flat. So this is a really good picture of like above the Everglades. They've built this little tower guy on the left here called Shark Valley Observatory, just so you can get up and look out. As you can see, there's not a lot of mountains, there's not hills. It's really, really flat. So we're gonna kind of zoom in inside these trees just to look at how congested it is. Then we're gonna look at one of the other spots of the park. Then we're gonna start talking about animals. So before I get to there, Elena, do you have a question for us? You can go ahead and unmute and ask it.
What if you don't know how to spell the animal name?
Just try your best. It's, you know, this is just for fun. We're not necessarily grading you or anything. So we're just, if you think you know it, just try it out and we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll let you know when we're getting to that part. But for right now, we're gonna click this left button and zoom into the Everglades. Okay, so we are in the Everglades. This part of the glades is called Otter Cave Hammock Trail. As you can see, it's a tiny little trail. So this is the trail right here that we're on. And we can even zoom around and see that it's definitely solid here. But even looking up on the other side, these trees connect overhead. We have a couple of different trees here. These are oak trees. And then we even have some mangrove trees. But the two parts of the Everglades look like this. It's either really, really, really thick woods that you can't even see up. Even if we look up, we can barely see through these trees. So it's really tight. If you're not here, then you're in this other really cool spot where all the water is. So I'm gonna go to there. This next spot is called the Anhinga Trail. So the Anhinga Trail is really, really cool. They've built this big boardwalk out over the water. And this is what a lot of the Everglades looks like. So there's not really land. Even in here, a lot of this is just marsh. So think about just a big pile of mud. Can't really even walk on it without sinking in, but it's enough soil that some of these trees can grow. So some of these trees are these oak trees, but a lot of them, like all of these right here, are these trees called mangroves. So mangroves grow up they've got their root systems buried under the water, and they actually come up out of the water and then create the trunk and grow up. So their roots are oftentimes even exposed. So right now, we can't really see a lot of the roots because the water in this picture is at a high tide. The water level changes in the Everglades. But most of the water is exactly like this. The Everglades is a huge park. It's about 100 miles long and about 60 miles wide. It's giant, and most of it all looks just like this. A lot of people even call it a river of grass because at this point, if the water was a little lower, we'd see some green stuff. We can even see some of these little lily pads right here. We can see maybe some of the parts on the mangroves over here. Let's look on the other side and see if we can get a better look at some of the mangroves. So this is a shrub on this end, but this guy up here is a mangrove. So we're going to zoom in closer to him and see if we can get a better look. Yeah, so this is a mangrove. Right here, you can see a really good look at it. See if I can go one more. Nope, one too far. So right here, this stuff that looks like a trunk, that's actually the trees or the roots of a mangrove popping up out of the water. So right about here, this thick spot right here that you can see running left to right, that is actually the trunk, the start of the trunk of the mangrove. So this is what the Everglades looks like. It just looks all like this. So it's kind of pretty. It's neat to look at if you like water. It's definitely fun. I love canoeing and kayaking and stuff like that. So I spent a lot of time here in the Everglades in places like that. But the coolest days and the more exciting parts was every time that we saw an animal. There's so many animals that live in the Everglades. Some of them are even endangered because of the loss of habitat. Like I said, this is a giant river of grass. So when farmers settled into Florida, you can see some of these. That's a really good look at the mangroves. When farmers settled into Florida, they saw this big river of grass. And what they decided to do is redirect some of the water to irrigate and water their plants in their farm. And as a result, a lot of the Everglades habitat got hurt and messed up pretty bad. So some of these animals that we're going to be looking at today are endangered. I'll make sure to point out which ones. With that being said, let's look at the animals because that's the exciting part, right? So here's how we're going to do it again. This is Guess the Animal Everglades edition. So I'm going to show a zoomed in picture of it, and then we'll zoom out a little bit and zoom out a little bit and zoom out a little bit until we finally see the animal, okay? It'll be really fun. If you know what the animal is, you can go ahead and throw it in the chat for bonus points, but it's just for fun. So with that being said, we're gonna go ahead and start with our first animal. It's not moving. Oh, there we go. Okay. So this is really zoomed in. The first ones are always gonna be hard, all right? If you think you know it, go ahead and guess. First one's hard. We're gonna go with the next one. Oh, someone says crocodile. You still think it's a crocodile? You can change your guess if you want to. There are crocodiles in the Everglades. We'll talk more about them. Someone says alligator. There's also alligators in the Everglades. Oh, someone says lion. That's a little bit closer. Panther, that is actually it. Nice job, Sophie. Tina says the same thing. This is a Florida panther. So it just like you kind of see mountain lions over here in California, or at least you hear about them. There's big cats over in Florida. They're not mountain lions, they are panthers. So when they're actually born as a kitten, it's about the size of that one's head, and they're actually spotted. But as they grow older, they lose their spots and kind of turn into that like brown, tannish color. This is actually one of the first endangered species that we're actually going to talk about.
I thought it was a lion.
Yeah, it's really close. It looks kind of like a lion, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's a little smaller than a lion.
My sister loves cats.
Yeah, they're fun animals. So let me tell you more about the Florida panther then. So the Florida panther is a little bit smaller than the mountain lions that we have here, and a lot smaller than the lions that are like in Africa. But they're still pretty big. So a full-grown Florida panther can weigh up to 160 pounds, which is pretty heavy, and it can be about 6 to 7 feet long, maybe about 2-ish feet high. So it's a really big cat, just like about your little house cats that you have, and imagine them being 160 pounds. Pretty big. So these guys are pretty neat. They have a range, meaning their like home that they like to hang out in is 200 square miles. So they like to travel all over the place. This is one reason, however, that they're endangered. They have this big habitat that they like to live in, but Florida, just like here in California, is pretty populated. So a lot of their habitat has been lost to different things like farms and city and human expansion and things like that. Plus, a lot of people are scared of the Florida panther because they know it can kind of get them if they're not careful. So a lot of hunters, if they see a panther, they went ahead and shot it back in the day. But they're since protected because they are an endangered species. So if I did this right, we're going to have a quick video of a panther here that is seen on a game camera. Oh, it didn't show. What's going on here? Hold on. Oh, bummer. Okay, well, this video is not showing then. It was okay. It was just a video of a panther. That guy right there, it's a little pixelated right now, but what is in the middle here is actually a tree stump. So what this panther did in this video is it walked up and it smelled the tree stump and actually rubbed its head on it to drop its scent. So if any of y'all have cats, then you know how they kind of like rub on your legs sometime or on like a couch or something. It's the same thing. It's just like a really big house cat, right? Just in the woods and a little more dangerous. So what it'll do is it'll smell and it'll try and smell for other cats, and then it'll also leave its scent there too.
My mom is allergic to cats. That's why we can't have one.
Yeah. If she's allergic to cats, she definitely wants to stay away from the Florida panther then. So with that being said, we're going to move on to our next animal. So here's our next animal. We're really zoomed in. So if you think you know what it is, go ahead and start guessing. This is always tough, the first picture. Here, we're gonna pop it up. Someone says it's a bird. Yup. We have a few people saying bird. We got a duck. We're gonna go a little bit wider. It's definitely a type of bird. Does anyone remember the name of the trail that we looked at earlier? Macaroni penguin, that's not quite it. Anhinga, yes, Kevin is correct. This is an anhinga, is the name of this bird. It's really, really cool because of a lot of different things. So I'll tell you the nickname of that bird. If you kind of look at the bird and maybe put your hand up and don't look at the wings, and just kind of look at the neck up, kind of looks maybe like a snake, maybe. The nickname for this bird is actually the snake bird. And I'll tell you why too. This bird, it eats fish. And the way that it hunts these fish is it actually dives underwater and catches the fish. But like ducks, you know how when ducks are sitting in the water, they're kind of sitting on top of the water. And hingas don't do that. When they're sitting in the water, they're mostly below the water and their neck is above the water. So if you didn't know it's a bird and you just kind of looked out over the water, you see this like snake-like thing in the middle of the water looking around, and people thought it was a snake if they didn't know, but it is actually an anhinga, the snake bird. Really cool stuff about this bird is a lot of birds, right, if they get their feathers wet, they can't fly as well. This bird doesn't necessarily have that problem because when they dive in, they have a protective oil on their feathers, and they pinch their wings really, really close, and that oil pushes a lot of the air away from their wings. So this bird can dive really, really deep. It can dive almost 30 feet underwater, which is pretty deep for a bird. Most swimming pools don't even go that deep, right? So it'll dive 30 feet underwater, and then it'll swim with those big legs that you see, kind of like a dog paddling. And it'll kick like that and swim around, poking its head around and chasing fish like that. Native tribes and native peoples of the area actually even used some of these birds as hunting birds. So they would catch an anhinga, and they would put like a little hoop or a ring around its neck. So when the bird went underwater and caught a fish, when it came up, it couldn't swallow the fish. So then what they would do is they would take the fish out of their mouth, take the ring off, and then give them a different fish or a different treat so they still got to eat. And they would use these birds as a fishing tool. It's pretty neat. I'm hoping that I have the video for this guy working, because it's a really neat video of one swimming underwater. Oh man, this probably means that none of my videos are gonna work. That's a bummer. Let's see here. Jordan might have just pulled it up for me. Yes, this is it. So right here, this is actually the anhinga. So you can see its body's mostly underwater. Its head's out of the water. That's when it looks like a snake. Now watch what happens here. He's gonna dive under and start swimming. And that's how they fish. They swim just like that. There's another bird that's called a cormorant that you'll also see in the Everglades. This is a cormorant. They are very, very similar to anhingas, but they look slightly different, and they kind of fish the same way. These birds are actually really cool. I have seen in California, I have seen this bird hanging around here as well. So if you go to the, oh, what's happening here? Oh, YouTube can stop. There we go. All right, so there's another video of anhinga. But if you go to the marshes, like in Bolsa Chica or down in Newport, or really anywhere like close to the water, then a lot of times you'll see the anhingas swimming around. So let me get back where we were. We have a few people that are ahead of it and guessing what the next animal is. So we're zoomed in really, really close here. We have a few people thinking alligator and a few people thinking crocodile. So we're gonna guess, and we'll keep on zooming out a little bit. What do y'all think, alligator or crocodile? We're split on it. This actually is the American alligator. So the alligator is a more common species than the American crocodile. The crocodile is also endangered, but the American alligator is not. It used to be, but it's doing good now. The American alligator you can actually find in 12 different states, all in
I guessed alligator.
Yeah, nice job. Alligator. So he can be found as far west as Texas and as far north as like North Carolina, and that whole southeastern states is where these guys live. They like marshy, wet areas, and they can get pretty big. So they can get up to 15 feet long is the average, but there's been alligators that are recorded up to like 17 or 18 feet, which is really big for an animal, right? And they weigh a lot. They can get up to 1,000 pounds. So they are really big animals. And they're really, really neat to look at. But you just want to not get too close, right? Because they've got some big old teeth. Hard to see because an alligator's mouth is closed. You can't see his teeth. So the interesting thing about the alligator, though, is its crushing pressure. It can, with its jaws, if it crunches down on something, it can bite down with up to 1,200 pounds of force. So think about 1,200 pounds just squishing you. That's how alligators like to eat, because they need that for stuff like turtles. If you've ever seen a video on Animal Planet or something like that of an alligator or a crocodile doing a death roll, these guys don't do that. All the animals that do those death rolls are in like Australia and Africa. The American crocodile or American alligator, likes to eat things that it can fit in its mouth. So raccoons and turtles and fish and stuff. It actually doesn't really launch out and get anything. A lot of times what it'll do is it'll go underwater, it'll sit down in the water and open up its mouth and just hope something swims by. So then it can just jump out and grab it just like that. And then it'll crunch it and eat it and swallow it like that. So that's how they eat. And they typically, unless you're in Florida, aren't that dangerous to people. The reason is that alligators are actually really afraid of humans. So most of the time, if an alligator knows there's a human around, it's going to leave. However, if alligators start getting used to people, like Florida per se, because there's so many alligators and there's so many people, that alligators are starting to get used to people. It stops seeing people as a threat, and it'll start seeing them like a little bit more like with maybe having food. Like a lot of people, when they see an alligator, they like to throw food to it. That kind of trains the alligator that like, hey, I have food. So the next time the alligator is hungry, it's going to go after people. So you will hear about some people getting bit every now and then by an alligator, but it's probably more rare than it seems on the news. Now, the other really cool thing about the alligator is its mating call, and I really hope that this next video works. But what it is you'll see an alligator, he'll lift his head up, and he'll make this like weird noise, and then literally the water around him starts vibrating, and it sounds like a big growl from like a dinosaur, because that's basically what these things are. They're living dinosaurs. So you can see here, he's kind of got that water vibrating and jumping. I'm gonna press play and see if it works. It does not. Okay, so it is really, really neat. There's actually two alligators right here. You see this one in the front, and then there's another one in the back right there. Pretty interesting. So if you ever want to look that up, you could look up like alligator bellows is what you'll hear it be called as well. They're really, really cool animals. One of my favorite animals. I grew up in Alabama, and there's a lot of alligators in the water there. So they're really cool. And this is coincidentally the only other species, or the only species of animals that we are going to look at today that you can eat. The tail of an alligator is nothing but meat. So you can eat the tail, and it tastes pretty good. Jordan just sent me another video, so we're gonna see about that video. This is an ad. Well, aha, okay, here we go. This is the video. Let's all listen. He's gonna do it soon. Did you hear that? You saw the water rumble, and then you heard the noise. Sounds just like you're watching Jurassic Park, right?
Michael,
Yes?
I can't hear a voice of it.
Oh, man. Is your volume turned up? It is a little quiet. Here, I'll play it again. It might be my audio. Hold on. Oh. Ah, there we go. It was my fault. Technology and me don't get along sometimes. Sorry, everybody. We'll listen one more time.
Still can't hear.
Oh, I'm sorry. Technology.
I could hear it.
Well, Valerie, you have a question?
I think you forgot to share the sound.
Okay. Well, we'll just move on then because I'm having problems with it. Oh, boy, we're all the way back to the start every time. So we have looked at the American alligator. So we're going to go on to the next one. So we're really zoomed in here. Caitlin thinks it's a fish. Valerie says a duck. Sophie and Lucas think it's a dolphin. Ooh, Elena thinks flamingo. Definitely a type of bird.
What bird?
Have these birds in California?
Yeah.
No.
This is a great blue heron. So it's a pretty cool bird. This is actually one of the larger bird species in North America. It's hard to see with this picture, but this guy actually stands about 4 feet in height. So this bird is bigger than some of you guys are. It's a pretty cool bird.
It's definitely bigger than me.
Definitely, right? It's a pretty cool bird for lots of different reasons. One of the cooler reasons is because of how tall it is. Like I said, it's 4 feet tall. And when it opens up its wings and starts flying, it can get up to 6 feet in wingspan. So from the tip of one wing to the tip of another, 6 feet. That's longer than I am tall. So it's a big bird. And it has a really, really cool hunting technique. So this bird will eat frogs, it'll eat crabs, it'll eat other fish. Sophie and Lucas, do you have a question?
Yes, but if it's so big, then how can it fly so high?
Yeah, so it is actually a pretty light bird. How I said that the alligator weighs like 1,200 pounds. The great blue heron does not weigh that. It only weighs about 10 pounds. So it's a pretty light bird.
I bet I can carry it.
You could, yeah. It might kind of fight you a little bit, but you could definitely carry it. Bird bones are actually really hollow, so they're pretty light. And as you can see, the body of this bird isn't really big compared to the rest of it, so it doesn't have a lot of weight that it actually needs to fly. The way that this guy hunts, like I said, he'll hunt for frogs and for crabs, fish. He'll even get some small mammals like mice and stuff like that sometimes, like a gopher even. So he has a really, really cool camouflage technique, which is part of his hunting. So as you can see, look at these guys' legs. His legs are really, really, really long. This right here that you see is just his knee. So he's probably in about like 6 inches or so of water here. And if you can imagine, what do you think this guy's legs would look like from underwater? Do you think it would be easy to tell the difference between his legs and maybe a stick? It's really hard to tell the difference. So his legs are camouflaged to look like a stick. So if you're swimming around, you don't necessarily see his legs as like an animal. You just see like another stick. And it's hard to tell in this photo, but the white or the bottom of his body is actually white. So have any of y'all ever been swimming in a pool and like gone underwater with goggles and then looked up, how bright is it, right? It's very, very white. So if you were a fish or a crab or something and you're underwater and you look up, you just see white. So it's the same thing with the great blue heron. His legs look like sticks and the bottom of his body looks just like the sky. So he blends in really, really, really well to these other fish and things. Now, that's the first cool part about him hunting. The second cool part is how he actually hunts. So you can see he's got this really long neck, right? What he'll do is he'll put that head and kind of cock it back similar to how he has it, and he'll just sit there just like that. Sometimes he'll move a little bit, but for the most part, he tries to stay really, really still. And he waits for a crab or a fish or something to come by. And then right when it gets in the strike zone, bam, he'll bite it just like that. And it's the coolest part about this is how fast he can move that neck. He can actually strike at 60 miles an hour, which is really fast, right? That's like as fast as the cars go on the highway. It's really, really fast. And just to see him sit there and just throw his beak down and come up with some animals, it's really fast and really, really exciting. Great blue herons are neat. So if you're ever go down to the coast, you'll see them there. And they don't even have to be at the coast. Sometimes if you've got like a marsh in your backyard, or I've seen them on golf courses around here. If you just see a really big bird, chances are it's a great blue heron. It likes the water, so it's got to be around water. But they're out here as well. Okay, so I'm going to go to the next animal. Really zoomed in. You can start guessing. We got some curious looks going on. I'm going to go ahead and go to the next picture. Elena, I'll get to your question as soon as I show what this next one is. Someone says a West Indian manatee. Someone else says a seal. Valerie's thinking manatee as well. Someone says shark. Well, the manatee, there's a dolphin. I was wondering if it would ever come up. Most people think these guys are dolphins. These are actually the Florida manatee, which is known also as the West Indian manatee. So I think Kevin said it first. Well done, Kevin. It is the manatee. Before I talk more about this, Elena, what was your question?
But it. What was my question?
How about this? You think about it, and if you remember your question, go ahead and raise your hand again, okay? I'm gonna, in the meantime, talk about the manatee. So the manatee is another one of our endangered species that we're actually gonna go over. So he is a big guy. He's almost as big as the alligators that we were talking about. So he's 11.5 feet long, and he can weigh up to 1,300 pounds. Valerie, do you have a question?
What does he eat?
That's a really good question. So he is actually a herbivore. So he eats nothing but like seaweed and marine grasses and stuff like that. He's actually a mammal. So he looks like a fish, but they are definitely mammals. So what they'll do is they will come up for air, which is why you see him close to the surface, and then he'll dive down to the bottom. And with this big old mouth that you see here, he will just kind of open it up, and they have some big flat teeth, kind of like elephant teeth, or like any type of like deer, something like that. And they'll just dig their mouth right into the ground and just kind of start munching and pulling the roots up and eating all of that vegetation. So a lot of this stuff that you see kind of here, how it looks kind of old and worn, he might have already ate all that. They're pretty cool animals. They also are very, very slow and don't have a lot of fear. The reason being is they just don't have a lot of predators. So oftentimes they don't know to run from things. So if a boat's coming, a lot of times boats are going to be what actually hurts them, unfortunately. So people in Florida, when they're boating around, got to be careful. I see that I've got a few questions. So Sanvi, what is your question? Okay, well, I think that she might have just stepped away. So we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit more about the manatee. The other cool thing about the manatee.
I have my question back now.
Okay, what is it?
Was it a golf course with water around it?
Yeah, sometimes people like to have water on their golf courses, so they have something else to avoid. Good question, though. So the last cool thing about the manatee is that it lives in like this marsh water area. So it's not quite fresh water, not quite salt water, because a lot of the plants that it likes to eat do well in salt water. But because this is a mammal, it drinks a lot of fresh water. So there's a lot of people in Florida that if they have like some marsh stuff in their background or in their backyard, they'll take water hoses and put them in the marsh, and you'll see manatees actually come up and drink from the water hose. I was actually canoeing one time, and I had one come up to my boat, and I had a gallon of water, and I poured the gallon of water. The manatee came up to my boat, turned around, opened up its mouth, and drank the whole thing. It was really, really cool. The manatee was bigger than my canoe. These guys are really big animals. So with that being said, we're going to go to the next animal. Oh, what? Oh, no. Okay, well, that's interesting. It didn't save 3 of my animals. That stinks. Well, that's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up the picture of our last animal. So there's unfortunately no guessing on it this time because you can see me typing it in. But this is the American crocodile. So this is really cool. I want to make this a bigger photo. Oh, wait. There we go. Okay. So here's a picture of the American crocodile. So I've got 2 people that are raising hands. Let me answer those questions real quick, and I'll tell you more about the American crocodile. Let's see who was first. My chat just went away for some reason. So let's see. It was more. There it is. I think I've got Elena. You've got a question.
How do you tell the difference between crocodiles and alligators?
Well, one sees you later and one sees you after a while. I'm kidding. That's the joke. So one of the reasons is Kevin actually put is they do have a lighter skin than the alligator. So just looking at the skin, alligators are going to be like dark, kind of brownish. And then crocodiles are going to be a little bit lighter, more grayish. I've even seen them look kind of like a little bit yellowish sometimes. Another one is if you look at the mouth here, you can see his teeth. So when an alligator's mouth is closed, his teeth are in. When a crocodile's mouth is closed like that, they're poking out like that. They look really scary. But the other big difference between an American alligator and an American crocodile, at least, is the snout. So an alligator's nose is very round. It's like an oval, where it's harder to see in this picture, but American crocodiles is really long and thin, and it's more pointed. So instead of it being a real broad semicircle, it'll be like much more direct, pointed with like a little loop at the end. The alligators also don't get quite as big as the crocodiles. The crocodiles are even bigger, so they can get up to 20 feet long, which is a whole nother 5
The
feet.
only difference I knew that the crocodiles were bigger than the alligators. That's the only difference I knew. That's why
Yeah.
I guess alligator on the other one.
Ah, gotcha. So they can get 20 feet long, and then they can get all up to 2,000 pounds. I hope that answers your question. Valerie, did you have another question?
What do they eat?
Good question. So, excuse me. American alligators and American crocodiles are actually like pretty similar in diet. So, like I said, alligators like to eat like turtles and fish and stuff like that. Crocodiles will also go for turtles. They'll go for fish. They'll even go for like birds and stuff though. It's a little different, but a lot of the similar stuff. An alligator is an ambush predator. The crocodile will actively hunt a little bit more. So if there's birds that are nesting above the water, a lot of times the crocodile will go under the nest and wait and hope that one of the birds falls out so he can eat that. You'll see a crocodile actively swimming after some fish and some things like that to try and catch them. So their diet is pretty similar, though. You'll see the turtles and the fish and the thing, but it's more actively how they try and get the food. That's like the biggest difference. The American crocodile still does not do the death roll that you've seen on Animal Planet and Discovery Channel and stuff like that. He still likes to eat smaller things that he can get his hands on. The American crocodile is also, he is our last animal, but he is our last endangered animal also. So he is only spot in the entire world where you can find the American crocodile is actually in the Everglades. So he's a very small habitat. And like we said earlier, that the habitat of the Everglades is actually shrinking because of human use. So that's what's caused this guy to become endangered, is that shrinking habitat. The other really neat thing about crocodiles and alligators is the American, in the Everglades, is the only spot in the entire world where alligators and crocodiles actually coexist peacefully. So there's not a lot of accounts of them actually fighting. You'll even be able to find like videos and pictures of them like side by side and just living their life and just enjoying the nice water of southern Florida in the Everglades. So that's another like fun little trivia fact for you, is the American alligators and crocodiles, only spot in the world that they have both of those at the same place. So that's a lot of the animals that I wanted to show you. Do y'all have any more questions about any of the animals that we talked about? I know Elena's got another question.
But is the crocodile a very endangered species?
Yep. It's I believe its numbers have stabled out. There was quite a few years where more and more crocodiles were getting killed every year, but now it looks like they're stabilizing and maybe even starting to come up. So it is endangered, but they're not as endangered as they once were. And, it just gets hit by a car or something like that is really unfortunate, but it can happen. So, but with that being said, I think I'm out of time for questions. So I'm going to turn this back over to Jordan real quick. Again, I hope you all enjoyed everything.
All right, everybody.
Bye.
Everybody say
Bye.
Michael, give him a round.
Bye. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to our tour today.
Bye.
Have a good day, everyone.